Hey everybody, welcome to the EPM Empower Hour Live. I'd like to welcome you here. Sorry that I missed you guys last week. We had a phenomenal executive retreat talking about the mission of EPM, which is freedom through empowerment, but more importantly, so many more great things that we're going to be bringing to the horizon. We talked about 4 subjects in particular, and the leaders that are handling that will discuss a little bit more, because we will be sending you guys a rundown of what we did, where we went, and more importantly, how we're going to keep working on unity through collaboration, showing the way and making sure that EPM always continuously improves. However, that is just my always brief part that I like to open up with. But more importantly, I think you guys are going to have a phenomenal time with who we have speaking here and who's hosting it. I had the distinct privilege of meeting Michael Allosso roughly about 15, 16 months ago at my CEO peer group. Since then, he came and spoke at the exchange last year and now has been on the Empower Hour for a second time. But what a lot of you guys don't know, and this is where credit always has to go, a lot of the great expansion in leadership and improvement amongst the ranks of the executive officers have come at his disposal, because a lot of people don't know he is the advisor and coach for quite a bit of the executives. So a lot of the improvement, like anything in life, is about who you have as your advisors that are so crucial. So to let you guys know, he is the advisor for many of the folks on the executive team, and that's always expanding. His background, besides being a phenomenal acting director and obviously a very, very fun guy that brings a lot of great comedy to the exposure, he, because of a rendition that he did for a wife, for an executive, is how he got into this. Because what a lot of people don't understand is acting is not about being fake. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about creating something that's real. So no wonder he was able to transition so well into being an advisor for executives. So without further ado, don't want to take anything more away from him, and definitely not take more time away from Jason and him. Thank you, Michael, for coming on board. Greatly appreciate it. Always love the insight. And more importantly, thank you so much for everything you're doing, for everything here for this organization.
Unity through collaboration, Eddie. That, first of all, those 3 words, what you said, brother, that's what the music is. That's what it's all about. Do you know, Martin Luther King Jr. said this thing: we are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. And that's your brainchild. That's what you preach. That's what unity through collaboration is that if you act autonomously, if we have all these islands, you know, it's like, what point is it if Jason's great, if Kerry's great, if Phil's great, Shabi's great, Steven's great, but as a team, they don't have it? You know, pick all your sports metaphors, go all your spiritual metaphors, go all your theater metaphors are all the same. Eddie, that was a great introduction. Thank you. And thanks for reminding people that acting is not fake. It's an honor and a privilege to work with you and the sexy ball guy to your right. That's like,
now the show is all yours, brother. I'm gonna leave it for you guys. All right, y'all go right. Yeah, get it right in the middle. You know, definitely focus directly.
There we go. All right. Well, this should be fun. I have to remember that I am not in an actual Monday morning meeting with you, so I have to watch myself here. And technically, I have the peanut gallery behind me egging me on. First off, Michael, there's a very important question that most of us need to ask you first: is where are you from?
I'm not from Windermere, first of all. I'm not from Windermere. Certainly
Shout
not.
out to Phil Shout out to Phil Mancuso, wherever he is on the golf course in Windermere. But hey, Mike, where do you live?
See, Jason, look how good you are, because everybody, that question, where are you from and where do you live, are 2 different things. Because Phil lives in Windermere, but he's Jersey. So
No,
I live,
and
right.
That's where he's from.
Right. So Jace, I live right now here. Can you all see that? On the coast of Maine is where I'm living. And I've been here. This is where my lockdown has been. I've been here for 51 weeks today. I bought this home in December of '98, tore it down when business got really good for me. Business has been great. Rebuilt it. So now Peggy, my wife, never wants to leave here, but I'm a suburban Boston guy. I was born in the city of Boston, did my undergrad and my grad in Boston, lived there forever, and I'm fans of the greatest teams, as you well know, Mr. Michigan City, Indiana, of the New England Patriots and the Boston Red Sox, the greatest teams that God ever made. Yes, I'm a Boston boy through and through. And folks, you should know that Jason's favorite player of all time is Tom Brady.
That is true.
Really, yeah.
Much so, very much so. Well, let's dig in. Besides your horrible choice in sports teams, obviously today, every Monday I talk to Michael. I enjoy the hour and a half that we talk every week. I look forward to it. He helps me tremendously, not only with coaching, speech, just personal life. So I want to tell you how much I thank you every week talking to you. So let's kind of dig in to what you're specialized at. And if you could start out, I know your biggest presentation is you on your best day. And my first question to you is, how does someone know and determine what their best day is?
Jason, first of all, that is a very provocative, deep question that has so much vision just loaded in the question. And I have to tell you, I want to make sure I'm not lying to you. No one's ever asked me that question before. It's just really quite profound on your part to even think about that. You know, Eddie said this great thing where about acting is not being fake. And so you know you're you and your best day when you have a 100% authentic day, when you're really authentic and you're not pretending. And that's what people get confused about. They think acting is pretense. In order to be my best day, I have to kick into something I'm not. No. It's the exact opposite. It's kicking into something you are. But in order to do that, you have to define yourself. And what I'm finding, Jason, is people like to define themselves by obstacles. That's when they fail. In other words, this is one of your strong suits. You never do this, but sometimes a client will come on the screen and say, yeah, my back's killing me. That's who my authentic self is today. Yeah, no, I just had a fight with somebody and that's who my authentic self is today. That's your authentic obstacle to being your best authentic self. So the simplest answer to your question, Jason, is you have to decide what your objective is in a given day. And my objective in any given day is I want every human being that I meet to be better as a result of having spent time with me. And I know I'm me on my best day if I'm doing that. If I let the obstacles get me, if you piss me off and then I get nasty to you and I lower you rather than lift you, then I know I'm not me on my best day. I'm not having me on my best day. So it's all objective driven. What is my objective? What do I want? Did I misunderstand your question, Jason?
No, you nailed it. I mean, I need you in this. This is what you're perfect at. Ask a question and you can elaborate like nobody else can that I've ever met in my life.
Thanks, brother. I learned it at EPM.
True. Talking to all of us. All right. Well, let's just say you're not having your best day or your best week. What would you advise people to get that back on track?
A lot of people these days have been talking about gratitude, being grateful for what you have. And one of the good things of COVID for me was, at least for a few months there, Jace, I felt like we all kind of stopped and we actually said out loud, and it wasn't cheeseball about what we were grateful for. So a lot of people who are listening to this are religious, you know, and Luke 12 in the New Testament, Michelle Obama had a paraphrase of it. She said, be grateful for what you have and be ready to share it when the time comes. So when all those obstacles happen and I'm thwarted, I've got to look hard and fast in the mirror and say, how lucky am I to be me? I mean, think about it. If you're at EPM and you get to work for EPM, there are people who go to work every day, don't enjoy what they're doing, aren't treated with respect and dignity, and simply go there to make a buck so they can put food on the table. I mean, think about all the luxuries we have to be who we are. So when I get down and all that, number one, I say, hey, you're Michael, you get to work with Jason, you get to work with Carrie, you get to work with Steven, you get to work with Phil, you get to work with Shabby, you get to work with Eddie. Man, well, how lucky am I? Jace, my dad was a firefighter. My mom worked at the local donut shop. Neither of them even graduated from the 10th grade. And both of them were super smart and taught me a lot. And the biggest thing that they taught me was gratitude. is to be grateful for what you have. And that's what I've tried to teach our kids. And we know we're doing a good job as parents when people are grateful and they actually have gratitude. So that helps me to get in the zone. And I'll tell you, go to the other end of the spectrum, and you know this about me. I sing and dance all day long.
Not to cut you off, I am a little disappointed you did not start with song and dance. I mean, usually on Monday, I know Carrie tells me every time you start, there's at least a song. So, I mean, maybe you didn't have enough time. I mean, I won't hold it against you, but
Well, it's funny
usually-
you're saying that, because I have, but here's the thing, Carrie inspires me to sing, first of all. I look
she's
at
asking
Carrie.
for the comments as well. Right?
Carrie Cole. I never met a gal like Carrie Cole.
There we go.
She's filled with heart and she's filled with soul. Carrie Cole. She is a sparkling gem, the queen of EPM. Okay, yeah. So I do sing a lot. And here's the thing, everybody, about singing and dancing. You can laugh at me. It's very hard to be in a bad mood when you're singing and dancing. And so, Jason, when I wake up in the morning, I'm in the bathroom dancing. Peggy's saying, "Oh, yikes, we just woke up." It gets me in the zone. So when I start to feel that down, I lift it with a song. I decide what I'm grateful for, and it helps. And finally, Jason, the third of the three-part answer to your question is, when I get out of myself and I start thinking about you, you actually help me every Monday when I meet you, because you're always upbeat. Even when you have an obstacle that you're dealing with, you approach it in an upbeat way. And so one thing that really helps me to stay upbeat is to fill buckets. So once I get out of myself and stop saying, "Oh, woe is me." President Bush during 9/11 said, "No one wants to hear the president say, 'Oh, woe is me.'"
Yeah.
And he's right. If I'm a leader, instead of saying, "Oh, woe is me," why don't I try to find out what's beautiful about Jason? And I'm going to tell Jason what's beautiful about him. And when I do that, Jace, I tell you, I feel great. When I fill your bucket and I watch you receive it, it actually makes my bucket go higher.
Well, I try to lift you up because I know that before you get on a call with me, you've just spent an hour with Phil. So I know you're in a dark place sometimes. So
That is true. That is 100% true.
You're very welcome. I try to lift you up on that sense. I really hope he's watching. Continue to go on, and I made a couple bullet points here. Being engaged in a conversation is very important on many different levels of communication. What is more important from your idea of listening or having an opinion or story to tell?
Let me make sure I understand your question, Jason. You're asking me to measure listening versus talking and having an opinion and a story to tell?
Yep.
Did I understand it correctly? Great.
That's it.
Again, a super provocative question, brother.
I'm trying to make it tough.
You are making it tough, and I like hard balls better than softballs. Gives me something to really hit out of the park.
Write that down.
It's a balance. It's a total balance. It's what I notice is the more people talk, the more you see their holes and their seams. So anecdotally, Jason, what I had before you guys this morning was a group of CEOs in Burlington, Vermont, virtually, of course. I'm still locked up here. And this is a group I had spoken to once before, 4.5 years ago. Eddie talked about those Vistage CEOs. This is the same way I met Eddie. And what I found was powerful for them today, it was kind of magic, is that I just let them, the first half hour, I'm meeting them, I'm watching them, I'm taking notes. I spoke to them, I greeted them warmly, observed behavior, but then anything they said, Jace, I wrote down. I wrote down everything that they said. And then I have this system that I think I've told you about before, where I have all pens in front of me. Like the beauty of this whole thing, I have all my notes in front of me, all my different colored pens. And when somebody does a cool thing, I put a blue plus. Like, for example, my Jason Callan notes, I have blue pluses all over the place. And so every time somebody does something well, I put a blue plus or something that I want to quote them on. Then hour, 2 hours later, 10 minutes later, I quote them on something that they said. Jason, you watch the person turn and magic in their face, like you just gave them this great gift. What I think happens is we talk too much and we don't listen enough. That presence, which so many of you guys at EPM have, you have dazzling presence. The mistake we make about it is that we think it's about being interesting. That's a tiny piece of it. I think what real presence is about being interested. So when you listen, you gather data, and then I can personalize that data. Like when you told me you were from Michigan City, Indiana, my kid brother went to Valpo. And so he met his wife there, you know, and I'm thinking, well, that connection helps me to understand your I now know that geography. I know the kind of people who live there, what that work ethic is like, helps you to understand you better. If I don't listen and I talk all the time, I miss that opportunity. So it's got to be both. But I would say for your audience, I want you all to work more on the listening piece and then use that listening when you speak.
Okay. Well, here you kind of touched on this because this was going to be my one of my other questions on this, and it's a little bit different. But would you say confidence or swagger comes into play in regards of being your best self?
It's got to be there. It's one of the reasons why I do love Philip Mancuso, is that Philip owns the moment. He has so much confidence, so much poise. Did you see the note in the chat, Jace, that someone said your volume is a little low? Scott said that.
My volume's low. Can you fix
It is. And you know what, Scott, thank you for that note. You know what I'm noticing, Jason, you're going in and out a little bit. So I don't know if Eric's controlling your volume or what's happening over there. So make sure you're present, because every now and then I lose a little bit of you. Thank you for that.
I will blame him for it. And Eric, can you kindly get this warning for the ERLA support line off my screen so I could actually see him?
See, that was confident, Jason. That was pretty swaggery. Eric, could you get this thing off my freaking screen or I'll break your head? Come on, stop doing your planks and get that off my screen.
Yeah.
Stop looking at yourself in the mirror, Eric. All right, let's get that going. Jason, you got to have that. But here's the thing, Jace. If you have all confidence and swagger in the toolbox and no humility, how are you going to be perceived by others?
An asshole.
An asshole, right? However, Jason, if you have all humility in the toolbox and no confidence and swagger, how are you going to come across to others? Weak. You would never be sitting in your chair right now. Eddie wouldn't hire you for the big shot role that you're asked to play. So what our challenge is, leaders, life partners, parents, is that it's a constant scale, confidence, humility. And depending upon who the person is, you might have to crank one up more than the other. Carrie and I talk about women's issues a lot because in the mortgage industry, it's a male-dominated industry, the way many industries are. So what I find is that women clients like Carrie, that I'm not worried about Carrie's humility. It's like as resonant, as beautiful as can be. So with Carrie, I'm going to spend more time on confidence. With Phil, I'm going to spend more time on humility, because we know Phil's going to come in gangbusters. He's not going to be afraid to go boom. So I want to work a little bit more with humility. Now, both Phil and Carrie have both things beautifully. You can't have a one size fits all, Jason. You've got to look at the individual, and you see this with your two children. I mean, Kaylee and Avery are going to be as different can be. And so sometimes you're going to have to work on pumping up their confidence as young women growing it up. And then sometimes you're going to have to remind them of their humility.
Well, right now, I'm just negotiating with terrorists. That's how it is in my house, but carry on.
Can you guys all hear Jason better?
Yes, that was the other thing. Better sound. Do we have better sound?
Like no one's listening to us because no one is answering. So Jason, this is wonderful. We get
That's
to be
because
together.
they're so deep and intent, they don't have time to ask questions. So I'm going to assume. All right, we got Suha did say it's good. Linda.
Thanks,
all right,
Sue. Thanks, Linda.
very good.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
All right, well,
Thank
we
you.
can
Thank
hear.
you.
All right, well, let's go back to something that you kind of touched on in your last answer. Do you think it's important to be authentic all the time, or do you sometimes play a character based on the personalities that you're talking to?
Yes and yes. That's the mistake we make. See, Jason, if you went to a Red Sox game with me,
I would never do that.
yes, you would, and you would enjoy every second.
Only if they
You
played the
would
one.
see a different Michael than you're seeing today. My behavior would be different. So which is the real Michael, Jason? The guy today or the guy at the Red Sox game?
A blend of both.
Correct, sir. So the mistake we make about authenticity is that there's one thing. No, none of us is one thing. It's a term that we call adaptability in show business. The metaphor we use, Jason, sometimes is the chameleon. So the thing about a chameleon, Jace, that I love is the chameleon can change colors. Like she can turn purple, then red, then blue. But the chameleon never becomes an elephant or a rhinoceros or a walrus. It's always the lizard. And so I think we are always authentic, but we adapt. Being authentic with Avery in your lap is different from being authentic at the retreat when Darius is giving you feedback about your performance. And it's not that either of those guys would be a fake guy. They'd both be very real and very different. Does that make sense, Jason?
No, that makes total sense. And it always amazes me how much you're like a sponge, everything that you remember. That's why you're the greatest note taker I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. So on Zoom, it is super important to be visible, how we do, and encourage those who don't want to be on camera to turn it on. How do you feel when you're on Zoom relating to people, obviously with this COVID world and not being in front of people like you used to be? How are you adjusting to that to get your message across and get people to feel, buy into your program of you on your best day?
My job is to turn the obstacle into an opportunity. So what happens is I think people perseverate on the obstacle. They say, oh, woe is me, obstacle, 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 obstacle. I've got to turn that obstacle into an opportunity. Yeah, do I like being in person? Yeah, do I want to be with you and you getting me a Mexican Coke and I get to rub your head and look at your scar? I just love, come on, what's better than that, Jason? I mean, that's like how could, there's nothing in life as good as that. So bald sexy.
Here comes all the bald sexy comments. Just so anybody that doesn't know, anybody that's in the office, when they hear me called bald sexy, Michael is the reason why that came up. I do believe it was during the exchange. I did not have a nickname for 10 plus years here. That came out of his mouth. Eddie loved it, and it will now be with me until the day that I die.
Suha, thanks for reminding us. That was great. Suha, you rock. I appreciate that. Yeah. Absolutely. So, Jace, I would love to be with you guys in Atlanta, spending time with you. I enjoy every second of that. I love being in Atlanta. I love going shopping in Atlanta. I love going out to dinner. All right, so I can be sad and ruminate about what I don't have, or I can embrace what I do have. And so I've got to turn the obstacle into an opportunity. In theater, it's so if I were coaching you and Stephen in a play. And so the two of you, it's day one of rehearsal, and you have the script, and your character says, you enter the scene drunk. So you go and you read the script and you play the scene with Stephen, and you say, good morning, Stephen, how you doing? Like I'd say, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing? Jace, what are you doing? And you'd say, well, it says that the character's drunk. Jason, when you're drunk, what usually is your objective? What are you usually trying to get people to think? That you're what?
A little tipsy, but not hammered.
No, actually, no. You be honest that you're not drunk.
Yeah.
You want people to think that you're cognitive, and you go. So when the actor does that, what he or she is doing is playing the obstacle. So I don't want to play the obstacle of, oh, poor me, I'm on Zoom, I'd rather be with Jason. I have to play the objective. And my objective today, you got to state your objective. If you don't state it, how can you play it? So my objective is to get people to heighten the way they show up at EPM or for your guests in their day-to-day life. So I want everyone at the end of our conversation together to walk away from the screen with a couple of ways to upgrade the way they communicate and lead. My obstacle, one of them, is that we're virtual. So I can perseverate on the obstacle, or I can celebrate the objective. And I choose to do the latter. Now, yeah, whatever deficiency though, Jason, I have in person is only going to get magnified virtually. So that if I have low energy, it only gets magnified virtually. If I don't speak well, it only gets, look at how this little rectangle is. Look at the two of us. If we were in person, you and I wouldn't be so important right now. Look at how it appears on the screen. Like it's all about you and me. Neither of us get away with anything in
I
this
wish
format.
you could see what goes on the other side of this camera. So,
Oh,
and
baby. Tell
Yeah.
us what's going on.
Right now, it's just Zamir in LA, but Eddie was in here earlier. It's usually laughing and harassing me to see
Exactly.
how grew up. But hey, is what it is. And not to, hey, when you mentioned bald sexy, I got at least 10 text messages on my phone going through, and that's where all my bullet points are on this.
Well, see, Suha is the only one that has the courage to
yes.
put it on the chat. Thank you,
She
Suha,
embraced
for your courage.
conflict, and she did that. I am going to say that I only had a couple bullet points on that. So now for the rest of this interview, we're totally going to wing it as Zamir looks at me in horror and shaking his head. Oh, here we got a question, I think. Are you familiar with the term code switching?
No, explain that to us. Who wrote that? Who's from EPM to all panel?
Who is me? Oh, LA wrote that right in front of me. There you go. Elaborate.
I wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready.
Well, code switching is a term usually, I'm not sure if it's just in the African-American world or in just different minority worlds where you put on a different facade,
different facade, depending on who you're talking to.
Different code depending on who you're talking to.
Okay.
LA, thank you for that so much. Of course, yeah, LA, you just gave me a huge gift because I was coaching an African-American dude in Birmingham, Alabama. And he might have said code switching, but my coaching he was challenging me on my coaching because he was making up vocabulary words, or he was leaving out syllables of words. And I'm saying that's not appropriate speech. That's not grammatically correct or syntax correct. And he said, yeah, but Michael, for some of my audience, if I don't talk that way, they're going to think I'm snobby. They're going to think I'm elitist. They're going to think I'm playing the superiority card. And so he must have been talking about code switching and did not give it a name. Here's my feeling about that, LA. It is exactly like adaptability. The thing is, though, LA, is I never want you to lower your standards. LA, I'll give you an example of white guy code switching. A lot of my white male construction CEOs will go out in the field and use horribly profane language with people out in the field. And, I go out and observe them with my notebook, like Jason says, taking notes. And I say, I never hear you use vulgarity like that. Like you're saying the F word, literally every other word. And their response, LA, is, well, that's how I can connect to those people. That's how I connect. I don't think that's what code switching is, but that's the danger, is that you lower your standards because you think an audience isn't as excellent or as elite as another audience. And so LA, what I challenge you to think about as you code switch is how do you always maintain LA excellence? So my challenge to those CEOs, for example, LA, is that why don't you do it not through profanity, but like knowing what their life partner's name is, their kids' names, what they drink, what they watch on TV. Can't you get connective and intimate with them that way rather than saying the F word? Because you are the CEO. And if you go out in the field and you lower your standards in an effort to connect, is that really being authentic? So LA, I'm so grateful to you that you gave me this name. LA, am I understanding your question?
Yes, yes, you are.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much.
So the goal is basically to not want to code switch. You want to kind of be your authentic self in every environment and just let that be acceptable and well, boost it to a point where that's acceptable across the board.
Let me phrase it a different way, LA, because you can't play a negative. So I never want you to play to not code switch. What I want you to think about, LA, is what are you trying to do? If you're trying to make this group of kids, say you were the big brother to a group of lower socioeconomic African-American kids. So LA, one of the things I do is once a year, I go into the Boston Public Schools, which has no white students in it at all. Everybody's Hispanic or Black. And they give me, I spend 2 days doing improv with 9th and 10th graders. And LA, I walk in and people like sneer at me. The kids like swear at me. They say racial remarks to me. And I kind of ignore it. And what I do is I get a list of all the names of people ahead of time and I learn the names. And a lot of times, a lot of African-American families name their children after 2 different grandparents. So often it's an amalgam. So it's an unusual name that I haven't heard before, or that I have to know which accent gets syllabled, gets emphasized. And then so when Jaquisha does something and I say, hey, Jaquisha, over here, I'm expecting you to respect. Jaquisha does a triple take. Like, how does he know my name? How does he know how to say it? And so rather than playing a negative that I'm not going to code switch, I'm not going to speak street talk today. No. I'm going to connect with Jaquisha in the most authentic way I can without losing my soul, still being Michael, and getting Jaquisha to lift, but still being respectful of her and who she is. And maybe I need to know my pop culture a little better. Maybe I need to know what music she listens to. And I need to listen to that on the way and see what I like about it so that I can talk to her about that. And so I think code switching might have some good positive associations with it if we associate it with adaptability, LA. If we, and look at the goal is to be consistent and not have to code switch. Constant. Did you write that, LA, or did somebody else?
Yes, that's before you went into your thing.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, constancy, I'm nervous about that word. I don't want you to be the same all the time, but I always want you to be LA, and I always want you to be the best LA possible. Shannon, thank you for your excellent feedback. I appreciate that. LA, does that help at all?
Yes, I agree with Shannon. It's very, very amazing explanation.
What happened?
Thank you, sir.
It was just
no, I saw a question. If not, I got some on text as well. Do you want to go back to that one?
No, it wasn't a question.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay. I didn't see. All right. Well, I got a couple questions here on text that you might not be able to see. When you're observing behaviors, what top 3 characteristics are valuable in life and business?
Jason, you're like Father Jason today.
I didn't come up with that one. That is totally Zamir. So I got to give him credit on that one. He sent me a message though.
Eric's getting all like touchy feely and spiritual and like
That's how he normally is. We just don't let him show that.
The 3 most. What was the adjective you used to describe?
Here, I'll repeat the question. When you're observing behaviors, what top 3 characteristics are valuable in life and business?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I love when observing behaviors. I have to admit that I watch for micro messaging pretty aggressively. So Samir, you remember what micro messaging means? And for people who don't know EPM, Samir and Eric are the same person.
Oh, everybody knows that.
All right,
nobody responds to him as Eric anymore. I do believe Eddie won't do business with you if you refer to him as Eric.
So Samir, micro messaging, I watch first for micro messaging. So you know me, I am drawn in by people who smile, by people who nod, by people who call me by my name. So I think number one on the list is people who are intentional with their micro messages. And for people who haven't worked with me, micro messaging, thank you. Shannon, I love you. Who is Shannon Johnson? This person is brilliant.
She fixed all Encompass, which is the software we use. She's fixed it tremendously. So shout out to Shannon for doing
Shout out to
that.
Shannon.
Yes.
Shannon, you're also emotionally very intelligent. Your questions are provocative. And remember that question you asked me about earlier, Jason, confidence, humility? Shannon's giving you a master class on how to balance it, even in her texts. Shannon, thank you for that. We shouldn't say terms without defining them. Shannon and everybody, a psychologist, this was 60 years ago, cover story of Psychology Today. His name was Dr. Albert Moranian, said that only 7% of communication is content. The other 93% is everything else. And those are the micro messages, Shannon. So it's the car you drive. It's Jason's t-shirt today. It's his toned body. You know, it's that he's in shape. It's his interrupting me right now when I give him feedback about his excellence.
Sure.
All those things, it's a smile, it's a nod, it's calling me by my name when you address me. All those things are micro messages. And what we do in industries like the mortgage industry, for example, we focus so much on the content. Foreclosure, interest. And we forget that that's only 7% of the communication. That people are responding to our energy level, our vivacity, that we noticed, what we're wearing, what we've said. So I would put number one on the list is if when observing behavior, the three most important characteristics, one is an intentional use of micro messaging. Two is a person who honors the other person as much as they value what they have to say. When I feel like I'm a partner in this collaboration and I'm being honored, I find that I'm very drawn to those people. And, you know, I've been watching Carrie and Jason Frazier's podcasts, their Facebook Lives, I should say, and they're both doing a brilliant, brilliant job. And one of my favorite things about what they're both doing is they make their guests feel like the sun, the moon, and the stars. And to me, that's what it should be. And what a lot of interviewers do is they talk about themselves the whole time and all their prowess. Jason, you're doing an excellent job today. And so I really look for that in a person who's as interested in me as they are in themselves. That to me would be very, very important. So it's an intentional selection of micro messaging, a generosity of spirit where I'm included as much as someone else. And so the other behavior that I observe is that focus and concentration becomes so important to me. The minute I see someone go to this while they're in a meeting with me, man, tells me a great deal about a person. So it's what we call in theater being in the moment. Athletes, what do we call it in sports? Being in the zone. You know, how'd you win the gold medal? It was really in the zone, focus and concentration. So, you know, one thing I'll say, Jason, you're a great example of this. This is another one of your excellences. In any of our coachings, and they often go longer than 60 minutes, that you never split your focus. You are always 100% focused on the event. And you know that sometimes people challenge you. You're in your office and Samir goes by streaking like he did in the ocean down at Eddie's house. Like they try to challenge you so that you don't pay attention and you stay focused. And Samir, that is a sight that the average mortal should not have to be exposed to.
Oh God, I wish you could see him now. All right, I do have another question that came over on text. Opening up can be considered weak, and especially for specific gender norms, but with society ever changing, this has somewhat changed. Do you think it is okay to show yourself as vulnerable? Ooh, that's great after that statement.
Yeah, who wrote that question, Jason? That's another very good question.
The naked streaker.
Wow, Eric, Samir, you're doing a brilliant job with your questions. Yeah, look at this. Shannon saying you have to be vulnerable. Shannon, what happens is sometimes when I have former military people in the audience, and the V word comes up, you see them get tense because vulnerability for them sometimes has a pejorative connotation. So again, just as you asked about a definition of micromessaging, as long as we define vulnerability as the way you did, Jason, as the ability to be open, open for feedback, open to know that I'm not perfect, that I have ways I need to improve, that vulnerability is rather wonderful. What we have to be careful of with vulnerability is that we don't use it as an excuse not to be excellent. So Shannon, Jason, sometimes I see a person come on the screen virtually or in person, and they say, yeah, just to be straight up, I had a fight with my life partner today, so I am not going to be excellent today. I'm in a bad mood. Now, arguably, that person's being vulnerable. They're sharing the intimacy of their conflict with their life partner. But if they're the leader of the meeting, I don't think that gives them a free pass not to be excellent that day. Yeah, I think people would rather hear the truth and be challenged by it than hear nothing and wonder why, or hear some syrupy sweetie pie thing. I'm all in with being vulnerable. Be careful of when you use vulnerability as a free pass not to be excellent. And here's why, folks. You just don't know nowadays, especially lately, this past year, who's coming to the screen with a bigger problem than you, whose mother-in-law just got COVID and was rushed to the hospital, and they broke their neck to get to your meeting, and you show vulnerability by saying you have a sore throat today, so I'm not going to be good. Not for me. So yes, if vulnerability means the ability to take direction, the ability to know I'm not perfect, right on the money. Right, it's kind of very related to your other question, Jason, about confidence and humility. It's that balance. I'm going to be vulnerable and open in this moment, and I'm going to bring my A game to make sure I achieve my objectives today.
I love how you articulate that, Michael. It really spells it out perfectly. We got a follow-up question to that. Can you translate vulnerabilities into strengths?
Yes, that's another provocative question. Who asked that?
Christy Rojas.
Christy Rojas. Muy bien, Christy Rojas. Usted es muy inteligente, Christy. Me gusta la pregunta mucho. Yeah. Yeah, it's Christy. There's a little bit of a problem with the context of that question. That's assuming vulnerability is a weakness. When you say, can you turn it into strengths? I would say vulnerability, when properly used, is a strength. Is a strength because it keeps me humble. You know, whoever is harassing Jason by stretching your arms like that in front of him, I can see you in the reflection, you know, and so can everybody else. Like Jesus just appeared in Atlanta. Holy, that was LA. Okay.
Now he's mortified.
Now he's mortified. LA, you are kind of Jesus-like though, so that's okay. Yeah, Christy, so be careful of deciding that vulnerabilities are weaknesses. But I think I understand the spirit of your question, Christy, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if I know that I don't come out of the gate well, that I don't start meetings well, that it takes me a while to warm up, and I'm vulnerable about that weakness, can I turn that into a strength? Yes, indeed. Because the most important word we might be able to say today after authenticity is self-awareness. See, on my business card, Christy, it says self-awareness specialist. So why Eddie hires me to work with all the folks at EPM is because I'm heightening everybody's self-awareness. And so I'm trying to get people to see how other people see them. And that if I can see that I don't start well, then yes, there's a great chance that I could turn that into a strength. Let's see, Suha, what you're saying. Vulnerability equals authenticity and self-awareness. Yeah, I accept that, Suha. And authenticity always requires intentionality for me. See, Christy, if you tell me your life partner is the most important person on God's earth, and when your day ends, your EPM day ends, and you go home or you leave one room to the next, and the first thing you do is check your emails, second thing you do is open your snail mail, and the third thing you do is you get a snack, and then 45 minutes later, you seek out your life partner to see how they're doing. I'm going to tell you, either you're lying about who your authentic self is, or with intentionality, you must choose micro messages and behavior that creates your authentic self. And that's why I like what Suha's saying. And I think that's the spirit of your question, how that potential weakness could become a strength.
Mhm. Check. Do we have any? All right. Can vulnerability exist without trust?
Gregory, right on the money, sir. And the answer is, of course, no. And that's why one of the things, Gregory, I work on with the leadership team is to make sure that none of us thinks we're perfect, and that I should have done better there. Because once I do that, then maybe someone else might take a risk to be better. See, what's implicit in your question, Gregory, is in order for a team to be excellent, they've got to take risks. Imagine if you guys at EPM were all risk averse and you never tried anything new and you never went outside your comfort zone. Your hairy, audacious goal of being one of the top mortgage companies in the world ain't going to happen if you're all risk averse. And so that's a great connection, Gregory. And I like, Shannon, the way you answer it, that I, as the leader, have to allow that. Now people trust me. Now they're going to take bigger risks. And now real excellence might happen. See, perfectionism, Shannon and Gregory, I've made the mistake of hiring perfectionist actors. And I won't say they're bad. They're good. They live in B, B plus, B minus. People go to A plus. They make mistakes. They goof up, and it's through that error that they get better. Oh, what are you saying, Todd?
We got a couple here. Just like in all of life, winners train and losers complain. I like that. Keeping them from growth.
Todd, that's sticky. I agree.
That is. Let's see. Zamir is coaching me on LA at taking risk as we speak. Behind the scenes, which we'll pull Zamir in here in a minute. My boss, Mark, I trust him. He pushes me to go more, push hard, and he has my back. That makes me want to go harder. All right.
Shannon, make sure the next time I come to Atlanta that I meet you. You're really superb. Your perspective on things is excellent. Because what you just did, Shannon, imagine how Mark feels when you say that. Imagine your shout out to Mark. That's only going to make Mark better. See, and one thing that we're dancing around here is new people who don't know me. This concept right here, this is my trademarked thing that I invented, TSP, which is truthful, specific, positive feedback. So what Shannon just did is she gave Mark truthful, specific, positive feedback in the chat. And to me, when you're able to do that, when you're able to see with great specificity, positivity, and truth, the excellence in someone else, that is great leadership. And that does create that spirit of trust, Gregory, that you were alluding to. That's how it happens. See, Gregory, to your excellent point, when I direct a play, the first 3 days, all I do is give people TSP, truthful, specific, positive feedback, all the things they're doing well. By day 4, Gregory, they're chasing me around, asking me for my opinion of how they could be better. Because now, to use your word, they trust me. They trust my eye because I've seen their beauty. And now they trust me to see where they can get better.
I like that. Let's see. Do we have any more? Is there another screen, LA?
No.
There wasn't? Okay. I was going to say if we have any more. Well, we're almost actually out of time. I didn't even see. God, it's been an hour again. I feel like I'm in a coaching call with you. I can't even believe how quick this went. All right.
Thank you, Jace.
I'll give everybody at least another 20, 30 seconds to see if there's any other questions. If not, we will close this and wrap this up.
Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate that, Shannon.
Thank you as well, Shannon. Well, no, actually, why don't you come on in, Mr. Payson behind? Come on over here. Come Come on
Who's
in.
Mr. Pacing behind? Oh,
Zamir,
look at how handsome.
how cute he is.
Look at
Well,
the two
what would
of
like to
you.
say, sir?
I just want to say that we love you so much, Michael.
That's
Samir,
it.
thank you. Right back at you, sir. I feel like EPM's home. Like you guys are like, look at the two of you together. When I see the two of you together, all I want to do is smile. Todd, thank you for your kind words as well. You know, I'll leave you with this, Erica and Jason and all of you guys. Michelle Obama said this cool thing. She said, be grateful for what you have and be ready to share it when the time comes. And I don't know, for you guys who are into the New Testament, Carrie will appreciate this. It's really Mrs. Obama's take on Luke 12. Look, you guys at EPM, you have so much. You have been given so much. It's not the time to hold that close. You got to give that away. You got to be generous. And that's my word of encouragement to you. Thank you for making me feel so valued all the time. I love and respect you very much. God bless you all, you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you so much for being here with us. And I definitely want to put out there that we appreciate you. Today is actually National Employee Appreciation Day. And so out there to everyone that is watching that is an employee of EPM, we greatly appreciate you. And Michael, you couldn't have been a better person to have on today to show sincere appreciation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Eric. Thank you,
Always
Jason.
appreciate it. This was fun. Can't wait to talk to you on Monday.
You got it, boss. God
All
bless
right.
you all, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.